Okay, so let's go see this in the real world. So if I look at the instance tab, there's a thing called security, and I'm going to find logins underneath there. That's where the logins are. Okay? But under each one of the databases individually, every single one of these databases also has a security tab, but underneath there is users and roles. Okay? Users and roles, and logins belong to the server instance. Okay, so that's how you find out where these things are. So I will confess, there's two things called roles, which is a little confusing. I mean, if I go into here and look at roles, I have database roles. When I go to here, security, I also have server roles. Okay, so one of them is called login, one of them is called user. That's easy. But both of them are called roles. Then that's a little complex. Okay, so on page 159, they talk about if you pick a brand new login. We'll do that in just a minute. You're going to have to, I'll go ahead and pick one. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So you have the choices. Do I want Windows authentication? Do I want server authentication? Do I want to have it mapped to a certificate or a key or blah, 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 blah. I mean, this is all really cool stuff. When we do this, we're probably going to be using the SQL Server authentication, because if I use Windows authentication, I'll actually have to have an account on my machine to be able to match this. You can't just invent a user Bob if user Bob doesn't exist on your machine, right? It has to exist in Windows. Okay? So just to make things easy, when we get to this, we're probably going to blow that part away. Although that's probably not best practices, right? Okay, normally you would not do that, but for us that'd be okay. Okay, so let's talk about the types of roles. So in the server roles business, bulk administrator, DB creator, disk admin, process admin, public, security, and sysadmin. If you're in the sysadmin, that means you're God on this instance. You can do anything. You can create databases. So this is like the set of permissions that you would apply to a particular person. All you have to do is just put yourself into that. So if I was to go to sysadmin and just kind of look at this guy, or how about this? Let's go look at my login here. And so I go to properties, and then one of the things it talks about is server roles. So I am sysadmin, which means when I log in, I have full control over this entire instance. Okay, so the next thing we need to look at is the database roles. And so they start with DB underscore, which is pretty cool. So access, okay, allow you to alter and do things, and then backup operator. Obviously, that's for somebody who doesn't have a clue what's in the database. They don't care. All they want to be able to do is backup. Data reader, which means you can do a select. Writer, you can do inserts and deletes and updates along with. And then DDL, which means I can go in there and create new stuff. Deny reader and deny writer, owner, and then owner, of course, has everything. And then security admin, where I can do the rest of these things. So let's go back to our real guy. And let's go back up here to the database roles here. So here are the database roles. Okay, cool. So let's go through here. I'm mapped to DBO. I know it sounds weird, but just bear with me. And so I basically want to know what members I'm in. I'm in the owner one, okay? And again, owner means I can do anything because I own the database. Okay, good. Okay, one of the things that I think is weird, this is just me thinking, what happens if I wanted to create a login and give you like nothing more than public, okay? But not even be able to see the databases. Maybe this instance has, I don't know, maybe you're a database server company, right? And so here you have JCPenney's database, and here you have Kmart database, and here you have Walmart database, okay? And you don't want the customers to even know that the other database is out there, okay? Not at all. That's a little tough to do, because given a server role of public, that means you can see that you won't be able to go in and do anything, but you can actually see them, and I think that's kind of odd. Okay, So what kind of role do most people need? Well, if you're a manager, you probably need like owner to be able to go in there and mess with things. If you're a database administrator, okay, that's probably owner. If you're a customer, probably you need like read permission on like the products table, but you certainly don't need any permission whatsoever on where the the prices are kept or things like that, right? Ugh. So the next question is, when it comes time to do this, should I use one of the existing roles? Okay. So for Cape Cod, should I go in here to the roles thing, if I go under security and pick the role, should I just pick my own role? Roll my own? Or should I just pick one of the ones? Well, to tell you the truth, if you're going to be doing like a single user, well, that probably doesn't really matter. But later on, if what we're going to be trying to explain is you should have role-based security. So if you have 100 people in your company, but there's only 4 different roles, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to only set up permissions 4 times. And then whenever somebody leaves this organization and a new one comes in, they just get the same permissions as the previous person. You don't ever have to go in to talk to the individual user and adjust their permissions normally. You do it by role. If you're in the accounts payable role, well then you get all the permissions you need as an accounts payable person. If you're in accounts receivable, well then you get those roles, okay? So I don't need to know what your name is. I just need to put you in the correct group, so to speak. Okay, so we're going to build one. All right. So to build one, I'm going to have to start in order, okay? So I'm going to basically have to build a login. And where's the login? Is that at the server or is that at the database? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go here to login. I'm going to create me a brand new login. I'm forced to do this because, not forced to, I just don't want to. Because I don't want to have to clutter my machine up with machine names. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Bob. All right? All right, I'm not going to do anything else, right? Oh, yeah. So, okay, I created a login called Bob. Woohoo! All right? So, and next I'm going to create a user. So I'm going to map the login to the particular database. Now, you don't have to use the same name, although quite frankly, if you don't, you're probably going to go insane. So what most people would do is to go here and say, I want a new user, and I'm going to call it Bob, and I'm going to have Bob as the login name. Now that kind of sort of makes sense, right? Because I don't want to have to figure this thing out. So that's that. Cool. So now I have a user called Bob and a login called Bob. All right, cool. All right, the next thing I need to do is to build a role and then put Bob in the role. Okay, kind of makes sense. So I'm going to go here and build me a brand new role. So this is going to be a database role. And so a new database role, and I'm going to call it sales. How's that? Okay. Now, I'm not going to give it an owner, and I'm not going to give it any of these own schemas. Remember, we're not actually using the schema feature at all. So, trust me, if you accidentally put one of these in here, it's going to cause problems because when it comes time for you to like delete a role, it's going to say, "I'm sorry, you can't delete that because it owns the such and such schema." And you go, "Oh, geez." Okay, so I'm just going to basically leave this part blank. So here's where I'm going to add my role members, right? So I'm going to go in here and then add, and this is kind of weird. I'm going to, instead of typing it, I'm going to hit browse, okay? And I'm going to pick Bob. I just don't like to type, okay? I mean, you could have just typed it. So now I've got a role called sales, and it has a member called Bob. Cool. Now, I actually haven't done much yet. All I did is I created a login. That's the first thing you have to do. And then you create a user. And then you create the group role and put Bob in the user. And then the fourth thing is you actually have to go in and apply permissions based upon the role. Okay, so this is kind of weird. This is clumsy as hell. All right, I'll just tell you that. So let's bring up sales one more time. And there's a thing called securables, okay? And here's where you go through and you tell it here the permissions on each one of the tables, okay? So I'm going to go in here and just hit search, and once again, specific objects. So I'm going to go through, and I hate this because it's an awful. I'll tell you what, let's back up a little bit. Let's go in here, all objects of the type, and then I'll say I'll take all tables, okay? All right, so here's all these tables that it's filled in for me. And then I need to go in and say, the salespeople for the buyers, let's say I want to grant them alter and delete and insert and references and select. How's that? By the way, there's no way like to hold the shift key down and do all these at once. Okay? But for the catalog, they ain't got no business altering historical. So I'm just going to give them select and reference. Okay? Just select and reference, because these are historical. I don't want to go back. I don't want anybody to go in there and altering anything or deleting anything, right? But buyer, okay, yeah, they need to be able to do update and those kinds of things, okay? So that I can do an alter and all right, so you have to go through each one of these one at a time and pick the things that you want. Okay, you're going to need to know how to do this for the term project, and I have seen this lots of times, and it's kind of confusing. Students will go through and they'll build the login, they'll build the user, they'll build the role, but they won't do anything with the role afterwards. So it's critically important that you don't forget this last step of going in there and actually telling it what the permissions you want on each one of those objects. Okay, it's pretty straightforward, right? Okay, good. All right. So, how do you test the roles when you have something? There's a really cool thing called execute as. You can say execute as sales and then attempt to like alter the historical data, and it should come back with an error. There's a really cool thing you can do. Let me get back to what database is this? Oh, it's the Cape Cod guy. Let me go here and do a query. So one of the things you can do is I can say select S user name like this and username like this, okay? This will basically tell me my real username and who I mapped to into this system. So I am, honest to God, Emmett Gray, and I'm mapped to this user called DBO, that guy right there. That's how I'm done. Okay, so those are really cool things. And the execute as and revert are just some cool keywords so you can just test out your security and make sure it works. So I guess it's important to talk about the principles of least privilege, and that is only give people the permissions that they absolutely positively need. Like start with the bare bones minimum, which is read permission. Okay? And then you add to that write permission on only those tables that they need it. Don't start with read and write and then take away write. That's dumb. Start with the lowest level, the least thing they need to add to it. Okay, that's just a philosophy on how to do security. Okay, page 163, they start talking about backup and recovery. And so this is something that's dear to my heart. So that means, man, you better be paying attention. Okay, good. So first of all, let's just talk about when backups are done. So I mentioned before that backups are typically done in the middle of the night. And so no one really cares how long it takes. If it takes an hour to do a backup, nobody cares because it's done in the middle of the night. But when it comes time to do a restore, there's going to be people pounding on the server room door going, when's the server going to be back up? My world has come to an end. Quick, I can't do any work. And so the speed of doing a restore is critically important. Okay, so you have an opportunity when you're picking a backup process to optimize the backup process, pretty dumb idea, or optimize the restore process, which is probably a better idea. All right, hang on to that thought. We'll continue in just a minute.